Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Prime Minister concerned about rate of unemployment. Changes to be made to PATH program. And later in sports, reggae girls know their opponent for knockout round. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shamela Pullen. Here are the details. We begin with news of an admission by Prime Minister Andrew Holness that despite the positive signs, more will have to be done to improve the economy. The Prime Minister was speaking at a press briefing this morning. More in this report. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the growth rate last year was 5.5%. Inflation after the pandemic went as high as 11.8%. Now it is down to 6.2%. Mr. Holness says the Jamaican dollar remains stable, but a big concern is unemployment.
There are many young people who are being employed, but there are also many young persons who are left out of the labor market. They are left out, some of them voluntarily so. They have decided to withdraw. And some of them are not in the labor market because they just simply don't have the skills and wherewithal to participate.
On the issue of pensioners, the Prime Minister also says there is a sense that pensioners feel they are not being treated fairly. However, he argued that this is not entirely the case.
If you are 75 years and older and you have no income, you can apply to the Ministry of Labour and Social Security and you can get support in a form of social pension. We have increased the pension benefits recently, and we have also increased the minimum wage as well.
Mr. Holness admits that the government will have to do more to address the issues affecting the economy.
Certainly, persons who are not working, persons who are not in the labor force, and a category that I'm very sympathetic to, the working poor, people who are employed, but their income certainly does not allow them to save. They can only consume, and they are not consuming at the level that would not classify them as absolutely poor. We have to reach out to those persons. We have to help those persons. We have to provide programs for those persons to be able to attain what the society agrees is the minimum standard of consumption that every Jamaican should have.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister says significant changes are coming for the PATH program. This is to ensure persons who are in need are not left out.
We have decided that we're going to do a massive overhaul of the PATH program in significant ways to ensure that the beneficiary identification system is far more targeted than it is now. Too often when I go out into constituencies or communities, I get the complaints that, I went to the PATH program and they came to my house and they say I don't qualify, but see my children don't have this and I don't have any income. There is clearly a refining that needs to happen in the entire beneficiary identification system for PATH. So that will be addressed to ensure that we are picking up those persons in our society who are genuinely in need.
To a TVJ News follow-up, the court has denied Police Federation Chairman Corporal Rowan James's application to be reinstated with immediate effect after he was interdicted. Supreme Court Judge Justice Ty Powell also ruled that she would not recuse herself from the case as she saw no legal basis for doing so. Attorney representing Corporal James, Hugh Wildman, yesterday argued there would be a conflict of interest if the judge continues to deal with the matter because she represented Corporal James in a civil matter when she was an attorney. Now, following the ruling, Mr. Wildman requested leave to appeal all matters. However, the request was denied, and we will have more on this story in Primetime News at 7. Should he or shouldn't he apologize? It's the subject of a debate by former and the current president of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, PSOJ. This over the PSOJ's recent call for PNP President Mark Golding to apologize for statements made by ISAT Buchanan. Karen Simpson reports.
Former president of the private sector organization of Jamaica, Howard Mitchell, believes the call by PSOJ for opposition leader Mark Golding to apologize for comments made about Isaac Buchanan is irrelevant. He was speaking on Beyond the Headlines Wednesday.
As far as calling on the leader to apologize for the behavior of one particular misguided, mentally aberrant young person, I think that is unnecessary. But every time we come to these crises, what goes through my head is Ernest Smith's song, that while we are fighting each other for the power, the glory, your kingdom going to waste. We are going on about these things. We're making much of it. We're not doing anything to correct it. And in the meantime, we are faced with tremendous challenges that we are ignoring.
The opposition People's National Party, in response to the PSOJ's call, accused Mr. Siaga of bias, urging the PSOJ to remain impartial and consistent in holding all leaders and organizations accountable for their actions and statements. Meanwhile, Mr. Mitchell believes enough attention is not being paid to several other issues affecting the country.
While we are talking about who said what and who should say what, instead of addressing the problem of indiscipline, indecency, corruption, bad behavior generally at the highest level. We pass laws that have no teeth. We have removed the political ombudsman from where he or she was. We put it with the Electoral Affairs Commission and we do nothing about implementing it. That to me is hypocrisy. There are games being played on both sides, and personally, I am at the point where I am saying a plague on everybody's house. We are destroying our country.
Carrie Simpson, TVJ News.
Concerns about an increase in respiratory tract infection in dogs. This is as a result of rising temperatures and the Saharan dust. Krista Campbell reports.
The Jamaica Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, JSPCA, says animals have been struggling under an intense heat this summer, but that's been made worse by the recent onset of the Saharan dust. Now, on the weekend, the Meteorological Service forecast a gradual reduction in hazy conditions as the Saharan dust plume starts to leave the Central and Western Caribbean. But in its wake, JSPCA CEO Pamela Lawson says it's left another bout of the highly contagious kennel cough that affects dogs. She says it's causing respiratory tract infections in a lot of the canines seen at the JSPCA clinic.
We get a lot of eye discharges, nasal discharge, things like that. But it's usually just the lungs, or they've got lung infections, things like that. So it must be our air quality. It must be the heat and the air quality.
She explained the signs pet owners should look out for.
You get the hacking cough. It's almost irritating hearing them cough, you know. They do need to come in, probably go on a couch, make sure that we don't have secondary infection developing, where they develop pneumonia, etc., bronchitis. And they should go on some medication just to help control it. Their bodies will help fight it.
Now, Mrs. Lawson notes the kennel cough had been on the decline over the past 1 to 2 years.
Especially animals who are coming in for just basic routine surgery for neutering. They go in the kennels and we're waiting to do the surgery and we hear them cough and we know that everybody else beside them is going to get it. Or possibility they can get it. Because it's highly contagious in kennel environment. Hence the nickname, kennel cough. So if your neighbor's dog has it and you only have chain link, etc., and they fight between the fence, chances are your dogs will end up with it.
Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
It's time for a break. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. The controversial taxi layby in Waterford, St. Catherine is now operational. This is after a tense exchange between the councillor for the division, Fenley Douglas, and Member of Parliament for South Eastern St. Catherine, Robert Miller. The MP argued that the project was being done without consultation with residents. However, Councillor Douglas dismissed those claims. Speaking at the ribbon-cutting ceremony last week, the councillor recounted the challenges faced.
I can recall 3 consecutive times that I had to come here to defend this parish council project because it almost became political. And the people of Waterford were almost cheated of having a taxi layby.
Douglas says the objective of layby is to end the confrontation between the JUTC operators and the taximen. Meantime, a warning to taxi operators who ply the route and a charge to police from the municipality.
Tap in the middle road, but Sarge, spare no rod. And I don't want you to spoil no child.
The project was done at a cost of $2.7 million. It's now time for the Business Minute.
Grace Kennedy is set to buy Jamaican manufacturing company Unibev Limited. GK announced that it forged an agreement to acquire the company, which specializes in fully integrated beverage solutions. Unibev is known for its 876 water line. The deal is subject to regulatory and closing conditions. Grace Kennedy says the acquisition will put it in an even stronger strategic position within the Jamaican spring water market. This deal comes after GK also increased its stake in Catherine's Peak Water, becoming the majority owner. Once the acquisition of Unibev is complete, it will become GK's 6th manufacturing facility in Jamaica. On the international scene, $395 million. That's how much the Bud Light controversy cost its parent company in US sales last quarter. America's former longtime #1 beer has been hit by right-wing media backlash since April after sponsoring transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney. The company said Thursday US revenue fell 10% in the second quarter as sales of its top brand slumped. The $395 million year-over-year revenue drop in North America during that period included sales in Canada, where revenue actually rose. That suggests the slump was isolated to the US and that the losses on Bud Light may have been even greater. And that's the Business Minute. I'm Shane Masters.
Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, a Bahamian judge has dismissed a motion by a Rastafarian challenging the constitutionality of the Dangerous Drugs Act in prohibiting the possession and use of marijuana, even for religious purposes. According to Justice Loreen Klein, there is nothing anti-democratic or anti-rights in Parliament's decision not to make allowances for the religious or recreational use of marijuana. He said that the vast majority of many democratic states still maintain general prohibitions on the possession and use of marijuana. On the international scene, the U.S. has suspended counter-terrorism operations with the Nigerian military due to the current situation in Niger. That's according to a Defense Department spokesperson. However, Pentagon Press Secretary Brigadier General Patrick Ryder said U.S. forces have not left Niger. It was reported earlier that U.S. troops in Niger have been restricted to the American military base in Agazed, Niger, as the Biden administration works to restore democratically elected President Mohamed Bazoum to power. And at least 13 people have been injured in an attack by a man close to the South Korean capital, Seoul. The incident happened near a subway station in the commuter town of Songnam on Thursday. Some people were stabbed while others were reportedly hit by a car the attacker was driving. The suspect was later arrested at the scene. No motive has been established for the attack. And those are the top regional and international stories. I'm Kerry-Ann Simpson.
We head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report with Spencer Darlington.